Hello and welcome, fellow motorsports fans. It's been a brilliant week of racing, and as always, I'm here to tell you all about it. This is the karting edition of the show, so as expected, we are going to be talking about all things karting, mainly focused on the juniors, and we are going to start with a rare sort of midweek race weekend in the form of the Champions of the Future Academy Series, whatever tour you want to call it, the newly founded pendant to the F1 Academy series. So this is a series focused on fostering female talent. How well that has worked in the first round remains a bit questionable. We'll talk about it in a second. But so the concept of this is, in case you don't know, is that every single category features at least 3 female drivers with paid for seats to foster female talent on a grassroots level. So far so good. That is a brilliant concept. Now obviously you can't just create 3 female championship worthy karting drivers out of thin air, so you have to start somewhere. Unfortunately for this first event, the caliber of female drivers was very not great, and most of them did not really impact the races too much, except for one very notable exception, which we're going to get to in a second. Let's start with the mini category rather, I should say. So the very, very young ones racing against each other. The way this worked was it had 2 finals on Wednesday and Thursday, so those are the races that we're going to talk about. Both of them had the 2 same protagonists, with Dan Allemann versus Priam Bruno, only with the difference that in the first one they were joined by Leonidas Peruzzi directly for a 3-way for the lead, which Allemann ended up winning. Whereas in race 2, as you can see, it's the same finishing order, but this time it was Peruzzi and Truscio battling for P3 further back, whereas Allemann and Bruno were running away out front. Allemann was very much the one in control in both races, and the second one even more so. And by winning both, I mean, he won the title very, very clearly and dominantly. And he's impressed already in the last couple. I believe it was the Miami Warrior final where he's impressed me as well. So he is definitely an up-and-coming Swiss racer, and there aren't too many of those to go around. In terms of the female racers, the mini category really didn't feature any noteworthy ones. The only one I need to point out is Victoria Farfus, who I don't know how they are related, but she is related to the Augustus Farfus that we all know and love, the BMW Works driver. So there's some talent there in the bloodline, and in this second race she's done alright. She's competed at the outskirts of the top 10 before eventually getting dumped again, but at least she did show glimpses of pace during this race. I hope in the future rounds the female entries will be able to compete a bit more. OKN Junior, I should say, the slightly different version of OK Junior, had a pretty solid field, probably the most impressive field of the series, I'd say. A few big names in there, but most notably was a battle between Clancy and Anagnostiadis for I hope I pronounced this right. That is one mess of a name, honestly. Sorry, I'm James. Let's call him James from now. James and Clancy. They were the 2 big protagonists in both races. Clancy winning the first one pretty dominantly, and James working his way up to win the second one, while both took P3 in the other race. So they finished bang on even in the final positions, but James ended up winning the title anyway, presumably based on quali or pre-final. I don't exactly know how the scoring works in this series, to be entirely honest. It is the first time out. But yeah, either way, so James won the title, but essentially these 2 have performed very, very similarly. Whereas, for example, Higgins, who's P2 here and had a really impressive and methodical drive to get there in the first race, he's been a bit anonymous in the second one, I want to say. He's just not really impacted the front end all that much at all. A few other drivers that we need to pick out from this is, first of all, I need to read their names so I don't mispronounce them entirely. And why does it not show up? Because it doesn't show up because I'm confused. I am thinking about the OK Senior. Okay, there's 2 other names that we can point out though. One is Marcus Shilkunas. I think it's pronounced Shilkunas. It might be Silkunas. I'm not entirely convinced. He's been in the FIA Academy series this year in the Academy Trophy. He's done very well there. I felt like he was one of the not quite championship contenders, but just below that level, like a podium contender in the individual finals usually. He was briefly a win contender in the second race, couldn't quite keep it together, but had a good drive overall until he got run wide by Luna Fluxa. You might have heard of her. First of all, you might know her brother, Lorenzo Fluxa, who just ditched the F1 ladder to go Sportscar Racing. But he's got two younger siblings, one of them being Luna, and she is actually also a Mercedes junior. Now, she does not really deserve, if you want to use that, to be a Mercedes junior, as in just an honest assessment. There's nothing on her CV that shows her to be F1 caliber, and she's had a pretty weak year overall, at least for someone with that level of expectations more or less put on her by the affiliation. But during this slightly weaker opposition, she actually managed to do really, really well, and she was in podium contention and maybe even briefly in win contention in the second race. She was solid in the first one, but the second one was really the standout, and I'm a tiny bit sad she missed out on the podium. But either way, this is beating the likes of the Donker and Shilkunas, and this shows maybe what Mercedes saw in her other than a promotional tool for equality. So definitely keep an eye out for her next year. And then for the OKN senior final, I very much expected this to be not a one-sided affair. It's obvious it never really is in karting, is it? But I did expect Theo McLaughlin to take this home quite convincingly. And it turns out I was wrong. Now, the first race he absolutely did. He did what I expected him to do and just controlled the race start to finish and won. It's what you expect. He won by 5 seconds, as you can see, and is quite massive in a karting race. The other sort of protagonists were Hurt and Austin Gale, and then obviously you have Suleiman Sanfari and Christopher El Figali as sort of two of the more local than most of the other drivers, at least. And El Figali in particular has done really well all year long, outside of the FRA and WSK environment. He's been a name popping up every now and then. He's also done really well at the World Championship, so I am always keeping an eye out for him when he's racing. And in this one, both of them were in win contention every now and then. Obviously, you might know Sanfari from his Euro Cup 3 and Gate. Euro Cup 3 seat or drive this year, and also he now runs the Ayami Moroccan series, I believe. He's the promoter or something of that sort, so a very busy man at a young age, and also a guy to keep an eye out for. Unfortunately, neither of them, in sort of both races, but even more so in the second, it felt like they were just running out of steam. In the second, they were both briefly in win or very much in podium contention, and then just sort of got shuffled down again. Bit odd to watch. Unfortunately, in the second race ruined McLaughlin's chances at the title because he banged wheels early on with Webster, and both had to retire as a result, which then more or less opened up a bit of a weird battle between Stiller, Gale, Lyle, those sorts, battling amongst each other. And at the end of the day, by taking P2, Gale managed to secure the title in what felt like a bit of a slightly underwhelming final, I want to say. One guy to point out here is Mohammed is the first name, and then this one I don't know, Naime, I think. They've said it on stream a bunch and my brain just cannot remember names. Either way, he's had a really good recovery drive, actually. Was in the first race. He got penalized after the fact again, but with a 5-second penalty, but he got up from, let me quickly read it out loud so I give you the correct amazing stats here. P30 to P10 in a short race. That's insane. Briefly as high up as P6. Obviously an unfortunate penalty, but still, what a drive. You just have to appreciate that. Okay. And now was sort of just a warm-up, during the week. And now we get into the real deal, which is the WSK Finals Cup second round. Obviously, first one last week. Check out my video about it if you haven't seen it. And this is the second and also thus last round of the championship, which means we have another 5 titles decided. And which I'm just going to talk you through the finals, because otherwise it would be way too many races. Just give a quick update about all the protagonists so you know who to keep an eye out for in the future. Now, in this one, We had a few really impressive drives throughout the pre-finals as well. The under 10 mini series, always a chaotic affair, to say the least. And we had one of the favorites, I think, Danny Miron Lorente, win the final and thus also the title in pretty convincing fashion. He is easily one of the best on the grid, and he had the luxury of his main competitor Perico struggling a little bit throughout the pre-finals. He got wrecked in one of the throughout the heats, and then he got wrecked in one of the pre-finals. So, and he was the guy who won the final last time out. So already his main opposition in terms of points was on the back foot, and he more or less just had to bring the title home. He did so very well. There's been a few other impressive performances. So Mark Lemetz has been just solid all weekend long, nothing to say there. Best recovery drive, as you know, I like those. Xavier Lazaro went from, I think, like P11 or P10-ish to the podium, and like just a very, very solid driver. He's done really well in one of his pre-finals as well. Robertson won his pre-final in somewhat surprising fashion. So he's another one. In general, the lead pack did extend quite a while down during the entire race, really. The only two ones that you might need to point out as in slight disappointments, first is Alessandro Nani, who just disappeared from a really, really good position and was in win contention during his pre-final. So that was a bit disappointing. And then the other one is Rocco Simoni, who actually won his pre-final and also just disappeared at the start, never to be seen again, really. So either way, a very deserved title for Miron Lorente in particular, and I'm looking forward to more from him in the very, very near future. Next up, the slightly older mini category, and this one had a slightly bit of a more unusual race winner with Tristan Kreissan, I'm not entirely sure. The Tony Kart racer, I don't recall him winning many races this year. Devon Waltz on the other end, the guy in P2, very much one of those who just wins race after race after race. Very, at least competitive usually, and winner last week out Christian Blandino, so one of the title contenders, unfortunately just about missed out to Waltz. Waltz got it in the end by, I think, scoring P2 in both weekends, if I'm not mistaken. But then we have a few other people to keep an eye on, and one of the main protagonists, sort of for me, that's, I don't know how that works for you guys, but like I need to structure my watching of these seasons with, I have my few couple protagonists and then structure everything around them, and then obviously very often you learn, oh hang on, actually this guy is now the protagonist, and it shifts around. But at the moment I am always having an eye on Alexander Leganki, who just stepped up. This is his second week in the category and he's already doing really well. I need to check, did he win his pre-final? No, I don't think he did. He got onto the podium at the very least. No, he actually won his pre-final. Yeah, fair enough. I'm not as stupid as I sometimes sound. So yeah, already his first pre-final win. Obviously not quite there in the final, but part of the lead group all race long. That extended down to like P8 Manny around about there. Pilipenko, unfortunately, slightly underwhelming, especially after what he did last week. I was really excited for him, and it didn't quite work out that way. Now there's another one. Yeah, this is a bit weird. This is just why I'm cross-reading. Yeah, I didn't see this. Yeah, William Kalija actually finished P2 on track. I'm not going mad. He actually did. I wrote it down. But apparently, yeah, he also got penalized after the race. This happens so much with kart racing that like you do need to come back after watching it actually and check the results like 10 hours later, just in case, you know, just to see how that works out. So yeah, either way, Devon Waltz, keep an eye out for him. Leganki certainly, and then the likes of Lopez, Blandino, Kreissan. Yeah, there's like really, it's like the top 5 that's been most impressive in this one, together with Kaleja, and yeah, that is really the big one. Kaleja is the big boy here. Okay, then the OK Juniors final. Now, last time out, if you remember, it was a bit of a bizarre scenario where the Forza racing crew just wasn't quite there. Neither Wherrell nor Dries van Langendonck were really able to find the same level of impact that they normally do. They were sort of busy scrapping in like the top 10-ish area, and not, you know, normally these are two people that you'd expect to be fighting for the win every race they enter. So it was a bit bizarre. This time we're all back to normal. Dries van Langendonck taking a win back on the track where he just won the World Championship a few weeks ago. So yeah, it turns out he's pretty quick around Franciacorta. Easy MVP though, obviously Wherrell, teammate Wherrell taking P3, that's great stuff, but the MVP and the guy you have to talk about is incredibly unlucky Austrian Niklas Schaufler, who keeps having bad luck in the heats. Caveat, we don't get to see him. I don't know, maybe he's just a really stupid driver in the heats and keeps getting himself involved in dumb incidents. I don't know, but at least he doesn't particularly do that in the races that I can watch, so I've got no reason to think that's what's happening in the ones that I can't watch. And so yeah, either way, through like a lot of bad luck and everything, he had to start down in P23, and look where he finished. P2, and very much in win contention going into the last corner. He was right there, and yeah, truly, what a stunning drive. There's a reason why this guy is talked about time and time again as one of these like really, really elite level prospects, even though he so far lacks the big titles in his CV to sort of back up that particular claim. Yeah. Unfortunately for the title fight in particular, now, yeah, and we do need to say this. I don't think he finished, for some reason my brain can't remember if he finished P2 or P3 on track, because either way there is one difference here, which this one I did notice earlier because that was a bit of a shockwave. It was actually Costoya finishing P1 on track ahead of Van Langendonck, which would have also made him the easy, like a very, very clear champion. And then he got penalized after the race for overtaking under yellow, and he dropped to, let us see, he dropped quite considerably. Where is he? Yeah, there you go, down to P9, and thus he actually missed out on the title in favor of Luis van Langendonck, which is super surprising in terms of how the points work, because he's been just not impressive last week at all, but apparently it's been enough. Obviously, got to trust the guys who keep track of the scoring there. But yeah, so Costoya really, I want to say got robbed, but like realistically, he robbed himself by just overtaking under yellow. I mean, you just shouldn't do it. And then the other guy who maybe should be talked about is Yusra Soon either way. There's a few people called Soon running around in the karting scene at the moment, but this is the one to keep an eye out for. He actually seems like the real deal. He was really competitive in his pre-final. He was really competitive in the final. He was also a podium contender and only got dropped to P10 with a post-race penalty for the classic, really, the front fairing penalty. That one just happens every now and then. So yeah. If in case I didn't know him before, but now I do, and I am definitely going to keep an eye out. DCC, David Cosmo Christopher, just a bit of an unfortunate weekend. He's had the pace, he always has the pace, but he just not quite the same level of charging ability that Schaufler had, and also just started way too far down. Very similar story for last week's winner, Sebastian Letimaki, who... This is sort of what I expected last week. This was a very classic Letimaki midfield performance. This is what I usually know from him. Where he's solid, he's guaranteed to make every final, but he's usually struggling to go beyond P10-ish, I'd say. Okay, anyway, next up, the not as competitive OK category. Bit of an interesting one. Obviously, we had Dmitry Matviev win a last time out. Ahead of Sebastiano Pavan, and this time we have the reverse, although Matviev still managed to secure the title this way. Those two were also largely in a class of their own, it felt like, in terms of pace and everything. Like, they were really the class of the field. And then there was two very impressive charging / recovering drivers, and it's the two Belgians, Thibaut Ramekes and Ian Eichmans. And in particular, Ramekes, I want to find out, because I've talked about him last week, it's only his second week in the category. He just stepped up from the juniors, and already he's on a podium for the first time, so that was really, really solid work. And he didn't get it gifted by any stretch. It wasn't a super attrition-heavy race or anything. It was him working his way up there over the race distance to take it. Really solid stuff, and beating the likes of Eichmans in the process, who's like vastly more experienced in our class. So very, very good work there. The other one we always need to point out is Williams Jr. Alexander Bondarev. And he's been a bit... how should we say, like, just a bit mediocre this weekend for his own standards. For somebody only in the second weekend of the category as well, that's pretty solid work, bringing on P8. I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of at all. But unlike last weekend, he didn't have any more than this. Like, he finished about where he should have based on pace. There wasn't At least it didn't look like there's much more in there than this. Yeah, so just take this as a bit of knowledge away from you. Unfortunately, we had one very notable retirement, or technically two, during the race, and the main one for me being Time Saleh, who was technically at least a dark horse for the title after a good weekend last time out, and also obviously one of the recently promoted promoted drivers, I want to say, recently stepped up to okay as well, and Jan as well retired, a Polish guy with the lovely name Przyjaźdźowski. I will learn how to pronounce it next year when he's probably going to be in Italian F4, it sounded like from the commentator. But I mean, either way, it's confirmed that he's looking to step up to F4, and he was in contention to be a Ferrari junior and all that good stuff, but his name is still one I struggle with, and I say that as someone with a very similar name. Okay. And then last but not least, the KZ2 category, the shifter karts, everybody's favorite, at least I've been told from the people that actually do compete in karting. And we had the German rocket David Trefilov actually take the win in pretty dominant fashion after a mega start. To like very, very quickly actually take the race. And then granted, he's been aided by Bertucca and Tom crashing into each other. I'm just going to keep cheating my way around actually pronouncing difficult foreign names. But yeah, this is just what I have to do. So yeah, two of the favorites actually for the race, and with Bertucca at least also for the title, did crash into each other. As you can see, Bertucca did not manage to recover. Don't even know if it looks like he might have retired. I can't remember. He didn't impact the race after the crash, so presumably he did. Loile with a fantastic recovery to even finish up in P3 again. Although, let me quickly, because there was another crash. Yeah, exactly. He would have finished P5, but there was Daniel Vasile, who you may or may not know, one of the absolute best shifter car racers out there. Biralart, ace driver, won a bunch of things this year. Bit of a rough weekend for him. He had to go on like a charging drive. Did very well. Was in podium contention and then collided with Nosov on the final lap, which then got Loile back onto the podium. But yeah, all of the carnage, and especially the non-finish from the likes of Bertucca, and just a poor showing from surprise winner last time out Zanki, means Trefilov actually managed to win the title this way. Slightly surprising. He was much closer than, for example, Van Langendonck last week, don't get me wrong. But yeah, very, very happy for him. I think he's recently posted he's testing GT4 machinery, or am I mixing him up with a different German shifter car racer? Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to find out that answer next time out. Yeah, this is more cliffhanger than I want it to be. I think the next karting event is the Rotax final. I think that's also the last one for the year. Should be in 2 weeks' time, if I'm not mistaken. So there probably won't be a karting edition next week unless there's any major news. But maybe you'll find something interesting with the other race week review episodes. So either way, I'll see you for another one. Until then, take care and bye bye.